I assume, Mark.
Okay, turning my phone off. Okay. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's Board of Ed meeting. The date is Tuesday, April 22nd, 2025. And I'd appreciate if you turn off your cell phones as this meeting is being recorded. Ellen, can you please do the roll call?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. Ms. Callan Carson?
Present.
Mr. Carey?
Here.
Mrs. DeRoberts?
Here.
Ms. Hernandez-Williams?
Here.
Mr. Riley?
Here.
Ms. Walters?
Present.
Mr. Weiner?
Here.
Vice Chair, Mr. Lacavoli?
Here.
Chairperson, Mrs. Granato?
Present.
Wethersfield High School Student Representative, Ms. Angelina Data?
Here.
And Wethersfield, excuse me, the Board of Education for Wethersfield, the School Kid Board Chair for Webb School, Mr. Liam Garden.
Here.
All present.
Right. And Liam is going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Nice job, thank you. So tonight, next to me is Liam Garden. He is a sixth grader at Webb School, and he is our kid chair. He could also be a kid mayor because he's got solutions for the whole place. So I want you to meet our new kid chair. He's going to be reading his brilliant essay that put him in this winning chair. And through creativity and practical solution, Liam has a visionary plan to enhance our schools and our community. Liam, you have the floor.
To all citizens of Wethersfield, my name is Liam Garton, and I want to be Kid Board of Ed. I love the town of Wethersfield, and I've lived here since I was 9 months old. Our town has lots of families, and it would be really cool if the adults in the town started asking the kids their ideas and opinions. Below, I have a list of great ideas for this town. Let's start off with the better lunch options. A great place to start would be better lunch food in schools. It is a big problem because kids come to school all day and only offered one meal, and unfortunately most times it isn't good. I have noticed that most kids don't even eat or finish their meal, which means they are hungry all day, and that leads to them not focusing. It's especially tough for grades that have early lunches. I would like to see better quality and fresh food. I think there should be more options each day instead of only one hot meal, PB&J, and fun lunch. Learning more about the town. I think it would be a fun idea for all grades that would take a trip to the mayor's office. Why? I think kids should be able to learn more about our town council and what they do for our town. On top of that, it would be cool for kids to also learn more about the town and our history of the town. The town puts a lot of fun events all year. Most of them interact with family and kids. It would be cool to get kids involved in the planning process. Kids love prizes, so it would be fun to end the trip with the trivia about what they learned, and people can win prizes. Honoring our first responders. We should honor the people in our town that keeps us safe. We should get together, deliver care packages to all of the stations, including art projects, cards, snacks, goodies, and more. This includes our police officers and the military, firefighters, and EMTs. I think we should have a First Responders Day at school. It would be really fun. First responders can visit the school and talk about what they do in their job and what they do for our town. I think it would be nice to having a writing contest about fire responders, and the winner could shadow a responder for a day as their job. Safely, of course. Career Day. Each school and grade should offer a career week to learn more about what they can be when they can grow up. Kids each day can take turns bringing guests, friends, families, members, coaches, and more. And in with all different careers, sometimes kids don't know there are really possibilities outside of being a doctor, teacher, or police officer. That would be really easy and cool. Wacky Wednesday. I think once a month, each school should do a Wacky Wednesday. This could mean anything from swapping teachers for a day to swapping classrooms. It would be fun to see what every classroom does and give everyone a new experience. A hangout. Other than people's houses, which parents don't always like or aren't available to host, there are no fun and safe places for kids to hang out. When you're on 5th or 6th grader, most public places like trampoline parks don't allow kids under 18 to get dropped off to hang out. And sometimes parents can't always take you. Playgrounds aren't that fun for 10 or 11-year-olds and above, and aren't safe since most are closed. It would be cool to have a place where you could go for free with friends to hang out, chat, play board games, basketball, or any other sports. There could be 2 to 3 parents chaperoning or a police officer. I think parents would donate time to chaperone, bring snacks to have on hand to give their kids safe and a cool place to hang out. A reading contest. Each summer, the Wethersfield Public Library does a reading contest for kids to earn prizes every time they read. I think coming up with something similar during the school year for kids would be a good idea. It would motivate them to read more. Prizes could be extra recess, lunch with the principal, or free homework pass. A snack exchange. It would be cool for the kids to bring extra individual snacks too that share with our school. A lot of parents shop at places like Costco or Sam's Club and get variety packs of things. Sometimes kids get sick of certain snacks or don't like something in a variety pack. Instead of throwing it away, parents could send a bag of extra snacks once a month to share with the school. That way, if kids whose parents can't afford snacks that week, the kids don't have to go hungry. At the end of each month, whatever snack are unclaimed, the school can donate to the food pantry so nothing goes to waste. Thank you for listening and considering me to be the Kid Board of Ed. I hope some of my ideas influenced you to make a better changes for kids in Wethersfield.
Oh, we have to get to work. We have a lot of work to do, Liam. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll continue on. Next on tonight's agenda is the approval of the minutes of our regular Board of Ed meeting on April 8th, 2025. May I have a motion to approve those minutes?
Motion.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Any abstentions? Those minutes passed. Now, is there anyone wishing to make a public comment? Come on up to the podium. And may I remind you, you have a 5-minute limit. And also another reminder, the board members do not make comments following your work up here. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Megan Glanowski. I live at 24 Morrison Avenue. I'm here as the parent of a neurodivergent child. My child is what's known as twice exceptional, or 2E, both autistic and gifted. That means he's a bright, creative, deep-thinking kid who also struggles with emotional regulation, impulsivity, and sensory overwhelm. These aren't separate pieces, they're woven together. His brain works differently, and that difference is both a strength and a challenge. And yet, in many educational settings, those challenges are misunderstood and often punished because the adults around him don't recognize what they're seeing. Educators and program staff can't support kids they don't understand, and too often they've been trained to view behavior through a deficit lens, where good behavior equals compliance, and anything else is treated as willful disobedience. Dr. Barry Prezant, an expert in autism, writes in his book, Uniquely Human, "Instead of seeing autistic behaviors as signs of pathology, we must recognize them as strategies for coping, for communication, for self-regulation. When we change our perspective, we change how we support the child." Twice exceptional kids often look typical at first glance. They might be chatty, articulate, academically advanced. But that doesn't mean they can control how they react when overwhelmed or navigate social rules without support. And when they stand out because they're louder or move differently or argue a point they believe in, they often become the target of disproportionate discipline. When they get overwhelmed and melt down, when they blurt out answers or correct the teacher, it's seen as defiance. They're written off as should know better, when in fact they need more support and more scaffolding, not less. As the National Education Association put in their guide, The Twice Exceptional Dilemma, when giftedness and disability coexist, both are often obscured. The disability may mask the giftedness, and the giftedness may mask the disability. So how do we do better? It starts with staff training, real, in-depth, neurodiversity affirming professional development that empowers adults to see the full picture of these students. We need training that helps staff understand how autism and giftedness intersect, recognize the difference between behavior that is willful and behavior that is communicative, learn proactive supportive strategies, move away from exclusionary discipline and towards inclusive strengths-based responses. If a child had a seizure and a staff member didn't know what to do, we wouldn't blame the child. We recognize that the adult wasn't trained for the moment. But when a neurodivergent child has a meltdown, a neurological event, not a behavioral choice, we often blame the child, isolate them, or escalate the situation because it looks like misbehavior to someone who doesn't know what they're seeing. This misunderstanding is not only harmful, it's preventable. We need training that helps every adult, teachers, paraprofessionals, program staff, administrators, recognize what neurodivergent behavior actually is. That a student who rocks or paces is regulating. That a student who talks back may be panicking. That a gifted student who seems argumentative might be trying to make sense of rules that feel unjust or inconsistent. We also need training that dismantles harmful myths. That gifted kids don't need support. That autistic kids don't care about others, that if a child can behave sometimes, they must be choosing not to behave all the time. These myths are not just wrong, they're dangerous. They lead to exclusion, to missed learning, to trauma. Staff training on this is not extra, it's essential. Training helps educators shift from asking, what's wrong with this child, to asking, what's happening here and how can I help? Dr. Thomas Armstrong in Neurodiversity in the Classroom writes, when teachers understand neurodiversity not as a problem to be fixed, but as part of human variation, they shift from asking, how do I control this student, to how do I create conditions in which this student can thrive. That shift changes everything. It is time we invest in that shift, not just with our words, but with our policies, our budgets, and our training priorities. That shift changes how we teach, it changes how we discipline, and it changes the future of kids like mine. My child is not broken. He is bright and complex and human. And he deserves adults who understand him with real informed compassion. And he's not the only one. There are many kids like him in our schools and programs right now, some diagnosed, some not, who are waiting for the adults around them to see them clearly and support them well. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, Mr. Emmett, you have some communication for us.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. A few items for communication this evening. Obviously, we are deep into the budget process. Last night, I had the opportunity to attend the annual townwide budget hearing. I did an abridged presentation of the board-approved budget for the 25-26 school year. Town Manager Fred Presley was also up presenting the budget. We had approximately 15 people that got up and spoke last evening, and all had their opportunity in this democratic environment to speak their piece. At this point in time for us, we'll be coming before council next week on May 1st to dig into the budget a little more deeply and answer questions that council may have, as well as any potential impacts with regard to cuts and reductions. Again, this board and the administrative team have done yeoman's work since back in January, February, to craft a budget that, and as I said last night, is responsible. It provides for the needs of our students and also recognizes that it is a big impact this year with reevaluation. We recognize that. As I stated last night, our 4.95% increase based upon the latest CASBO numbers, the average board-approved budget coming out of boards of education across the state of Connecticut is 5.34%. So we've tried to come in reasonably within that. Again, obviously we know too, we have a major challenge ahead with the upcoming referendum. And I will tell you that that is vitally, vitally important. So this work will continue through the month of May up to about May 15th when the charter requires allocation. My understanding from Mayor Lesser last night was that council would be scheduling a meeting on May 14th to set the budget. Once that budget is set, depending upon any reductions, this board will need to come back together again to finalize that budget and finalize reductions. Just so everyone knows, we have 2 meetings in May. Our meeting on June 10th is canceled because we have the joy of graduation, class of 2025. So we'll be over at Cove Park celebrating our graduates. So there is a tight timeline. Speaking of timelines, this evening before you, you will see a resolution with regard to our building project. There has been a tremendous amount of work that has gone on over the past several months. From the school district side at this point in time, we are working diligently to make sure we're providing TSKP and Downs Construction with everything they need with regard to ed specs, with regard to space standards, and making sure that we are prepared to submit a grant application prior to June 30th of 2025. With the anticipated referendum happening in September. So that resolution, this is the first of multiple items that will come before you in the next couple meetings. This resolution will be dealing with the grant application. So again, this is important work. You'll see on May 13th the approval of the ed specs. We're working on that now. Mr. Scott has been diligent in making me meet the space standards. We spent a day, morning last week, talking about making some adjustments. So 3,000 square feet, Mr. Scott, I think we were able to come through on that. So there is a lot of work involved in this. And again, many thanks to TSKP for their guidance, as well as Tom with Downs Construction. So again, this is a process that needs to happen. Speaking of processes that need to happen, the transition process. As you know, Jeff Wibby will be joining you as your next superintendent of schools. The transition process for us has been ongoing. So for example, last week, when we met with Downs and TSKP, I had Jeff sit in so he could meet both Tom and Mike and get a feel for what's going on in our schools. Jeff and I, along with Mike Barabal and Sally Katz, toured all of the elementary schools last week so he could get a firsthand look at what the schools are looking like, what our deficits are, and what we need. So that transition work is going to continue. We will be meeting next week to visit high school, the middle school, and the transition academy as well. Obviously want to make sure that the transition is as smooth as possible. Also, from a budgetary standpoint, we will have a series of resignations and retirements. We are looking at posting some positions now. They are posted as tentative positions. Again, they're going to depend upon the budget allocation. But we feel it's important to make sure that we get this posting out now to develop the pool. I am looking at 3 math positions at Wethersfield High School. That is one area we have already started the process of hiring. So I have one that will be meeting with me next week. In addition to that, we had a curriculum specialist who left the district this year, current year, to take on a role as an assistant principal in another district. I'm very happy that we were able to hire another curriculum specialist who will be coming aboard in mid-May. So it is very, very busy at this point in time as we wrap up the school year. Again, right now, so everybody knows, the last day of school is Monday, the 16th of June. It is a minimum day. Monday, the 16th. And again, right now, our schedule is, we have 182 days. I have had some question about, hey, can we finish up on Friday instead? We have an obligation to our kids. And the reality of it is, I want to make sure our kids get the maximum amount of learning time. We had 2 days. Obviously, one day was to honor our beloved firefighter, Rob Sharkovich, and then we had one snow day. So at this point in time, Monday, the 16th of June, will be the last day of school, a minimum day. It allows the high school the opportunity to finish up makeup exams as it is, and I'm sure, Angelica, you can probably speak to it. We have, with the seniors graduating on the 10th, we're going to have like 2 concurrent finals schedules, so a bit of a challenge. In addition to that, step-up ceremonies, I think somebody here up on the dais is going to be stepping up to the middle school coming up in June, am I correct? Yes, that's on my calendar as well. So step-up ceremonies, lots and lots of field trips coming up, spring concerts, spring sports are in full steam ahead right now. So there is a lot going on with very little time left. The calendar is moving quickly. So with that, it's communications. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, tonight we have 3 action items. Matt, would you read action item 6A for us?
I will. I will. Thank you, Bobby. I move that the Wethersfield Board of Education approve the revised policy 1400, school security and safety.
Second.
Okay, a discussion? That was our second read on that? Okay, let's put a vote on it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Any abstentions? That motion is passed. Matt, would you do 6B?
I move that the Wethersfield Board of Education approve the revised policy 1600, visitors and observations in schools.
Second.
Okay, any discussions on that one? All right, let's have a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Any abstentions? That motion passes. All right, this evening, we're going to keep going. We have John. Would you read motion 6C?
Yes, bear with me. This is a long one. I recommend that the Wethersfield Board of Education approve the Town of Wethersfield Resolution R2025-004. This resolution authorizing the Board of Education to apply for a grant. Whereas the Town of Wethersfield Board of Education desires to seek funding for the design and construction of the new Highcrest Elementary School and the master plan through a grant application with the Commission of Administrative Services. Whereas the Board of Education recognizes the importance of securing external funding to support the design and construction of the new Highcrest Elementary School and its positive impact on our students and community. Now therefore be it resolved that the Town of Wethersfield Board of Education is hereby authorizing Board of Education to submit grant application to apply to the Commissioner of Administrative Services and to accept or reject a grant for the design and construction of the new Highcrest Elementary School located on Highland Road in Wethersfield, Connecticut. Be it further resolved that the Board of Education designate Michael T. Emmett, Superintendent of Wethersfield Public Schools, as the authorized representative to execute and submit the grant application and all related documents on behalf of the Board of Education. Be it further resolved that the Board of Education agrees to comply with all the terms and conditions of the grant agreement if awarded. Be it further resolved that the Board of Education will ensure that grant funds are used in accordance with the grant agreement and applicable laws and regulations passed and adopted this 22nd day, April 2025.
Second.
Okay. Discussions. Mike, you want to come up for us? Thank you. Thank you, John.
I'm going to have to wake my machine back up. I'm Michael Scott with TSKP Studio in Hartford, Connecticut. Oh, caps locks, come on.
Now it doesn't work?
No, it's just my poor typing skills.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
We can get on that.
Good to see you all again tonight. I know that you've been following this process pretty carefully. What I'm here to do tonight is give you a quick overview of the work we've been doing across the town with the school building committee. I'm going to present quickly the overall master plan, then discuss what we feel could become the first referendum that would support that master plan, and then really essentially hone in on that phase one, which is the grant that we will look to apply for on June 30th. We do not apply for multiple school grants because those grants expire. You want to apply for them as you are taking on the building process so you don't get behind on your homework. Okay, so hopefully my agenda will be relatively brief. And like I said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to move very quickly because you all look very familiar and I know you've been following this closely. I'm more than happy to answer questions. I work best if you interrupt me. I'm happy to expand or to go back and clarify as much as needed. But as I said, my goal here tonight is to first quickly review the comprehensive plan as conceived by the building committee, talk about how we will phase this rather than tackle it all at once. And then on behalf of Downs Construction, I'm going to present some budget numbers, not only for the first phase, which is the grant you're applying for, but potentially the first three phases, which will be what the first referendum is for, and then project out for an overall comprehensive cost of the plan. The comprehensive plan. As you all no doubt know, there's several major tenets of the plan that has been developed since we started working with you at the end of last summer. Those are primarily to bring parity across all the elementary schools in both enrollment and classroom sizes. So that's not just the physical size of the classroom, but essentially to create equal size classes across the district so that every elementary school has equal attention from their primary educator. It's also become a high priority from the building committee to maintain a school at each of the 5 sites. That the thought of consolidating down and eliminating facilities while that might yield some small cost savings, did not represent equal value to the town of Wethersfield. Next is to utilize a new building, a new construction, as that first phase that would enable elementary school populations to swing into that school for the academic year that their building is being renovated. This will help minimize disruption in the education environment of that entire elementary school population during the construction process, and also help minimize sunk cost in temporary provisions, temporary protections, swing shift work, second shift work that would be a result of trying to work in an occupied building. The next one is to convert Samuel Webb back into an intermediate school, a school for grades 5 and 6 that then those students would transfer up to Silas Deane Middle School in grades 7 and 8. And then lastly, to return to the remaining 3 elementary school sites and renovate each of those as new, with both Webb, which would be renovated as new, and the 3 remaining elementary school sites. The renovate as new will yield an additional 10 cents on the dollar in reimbursement from the state construction program. So that is to great benefit and a great return to the town. I'm going to focus on the structure of the first 3 phases of this overall program. The reason I'm focusing on the first 3 phases is it will ultimately be the recommendation of the building committee to, rather than to go for one complete referendum, to split the referendum into multiple stages and take the first 3 projects more or less as the first effort. As I previously mentioned, it's one of the tenets of the master plan is to build one new school at the standard reimbursement rate that would allow a school's population to swing into while their school is being renovated. So the building committee, after much deliberation, chose the Keisha Farm site. This is an early rendering of the Keisha Farm site. You can see Highland down across the bottom of the page. Off to the left is Collier Road, which is about a full building story below Highland in this instance. So you see a couple of curb cuts, more or less in alignment between the seam between the soccer fields and the ball field at the north end of the Highcrest site, with a car loop and a bus loop, and then a building with a single point of entry down at the bottom. As we develop this project in more detail, with central office and refined the ed spec, it became clear that this would be a good candidate to house the new home for the preschool program. With Webb going to a 5-6 academy, having preschoolers as cohorts no longer really made sense in that regard. So we're able to both not only fold in the preschool program into this building, but to grow it, expand it from 3 classrooms to 5 classrooms. That's based on current and projected need by the time this building comes online. So the building got a little bigger. Rather than a single bar, you can see it took on an inverted T shape. I'll point out that you haven't yet hired an architect to design this building. Really what we're trying to do is space-proof the project to make sure whatever funds that you secure will be sufficient to support the mission that is set forth for that school. As Superintendent Emmett, well, you didn't hint at, you said it point blank, we've held his feet to the fire in keeping the total square footage of the building to the maximum that will be reimbursed based on the anticipated student population. In other words, the state governs how much square footage you can build in a school. They're not in the business of subsidizing extremely large schools. What we think we've done here is we've proven that the site has ample resources to support the educational specification for you. In fact, it exceeds it in many interesting ways. There's lots of excellent opportunities to incorporate physical education fields, agricultural education fields, environmental education sites, stitch it into the wetlands, stitch it into the Keisha Barn resource, or the fields across the street at Highcrest. So there's a tremendous opportunity here. We are also trying to verify that the budget that Downs is putting forward will in fact support a building of this site to be constructed in the future. That's why we've drawn it more or less as a plan. I will guarantee that the school will not look like this, even if I am the architect that gets hired. Next, I'd like to move on to Webb. It's important to understand, I'll just reiterate real quickly, I've said it before you all before, but deep in the DNA of the Webb building, it is an intermediate school. Back when the town had, I think, 2 intermediate schools. It has educational resources built into it, say the larger gym and the auditorium, which frankly would no longer be supported by an elementary school construction process. That's why, for instance, the new school that we're building at what's called the new Highcrest School does not have an auditorium. The state won't subsidize it anymore. If we renovated Webb as an elementary school, we would have to put the student population back into it to help support that additional square footage to be reimbursable or apply for a waiver. None of this is guaranteed. None of it is necessarily consistent with the idea of bringing parity across all your elementary schools to have equal resources. So recognizing the real estate asset, for lack of a better word, that is in Webb, and the educational opportunity in this moment to create a 5-6 academy for every student in the town of Wethersfield, it's thought that we can expand Webb slightly so that it can take on a student population equal to Silas, Deane, and make good use of the full resources. So you can see here, again, this is an idea where we are essentially space-proofing the plan. This will be, at this point in time, the second phase of the comprehensive elementary school building process. But we would take that glass bridge connector that faces the parking lot and bus drop-off, demolish that, demolish some of the rooms to the north of the auditorium, and rebuild new two-story wing across that space that would do a couple of things. It would put administration down low at the parking lot level so that they are now in the position of monitoring every coming and going back to the school at an accessible entrance where the current administration is not at an accessible entrance. And then the upper floor of that would be expanded out for additional classrooms. We would gut the two-story wing in its entirety and repartition it so that we could put in classrooms of sufficient size to take on the population of every 5th and 6th grader in the district. The left half of this wing, to anyone who spent any time in Webb, you should be reassured that it largely looks like the current Webb configuration. The auditorium remains where the auditorium is. The gymnasium remains where it currently is. The cafeteria gets expanded a little bit into the courtyard because of additional seating capacity. That's good return to the town because we don't have to build those big, large span spaces from scratch. But rest assured, as part of this renovation as new process, every single finish system component of that building will be removed and replaced with new construction. So we're just using essentially the rib cage of those spaces and putting back new flooring, new seating, new acoustics, new sports equipment, new ceilings, the whole bit.
You said you wanted questions during it, right, to stop you?
Yes, please.
So you stated earlier that we haven't hired an architect. So what you're giving us right now is a conceptual idea of what it could be in theory?
Right.
Or could people take like this, what you're saying is going to happen at Webb is going to happen, but earlier you said we haven't hired an architect, so I just wanted.
That's a good question.
For the public, is it a conceptual idea? Because people fall in love with what is said. So like if you're saying it now and it changes, right? So the question I guess is it a conceptual idea at this point?
These are all conceptual ideas. I mean, to be honest with you, unless you want to build unsubsidized square footage, we know how much building you're going to build on the website because there's a formula at the state, and all I need to do is plug in the highest enrollment of 5th and 6th graders in the next 8 years and put it into a formula, and that spits out a size building. And then Downs will price that. What we needed to do was test, can that building be renovated to accommodate that size? Can we put in the right number of classrooms of the correct size to support that as well? So this is really almost just a test fit of packing a tube of toothpaste, showing it to Downs and saying, see how much of the building can be maintained and renovated and how much you have to take away and build new. And so it's just a case in point.
Okay.
There's still a lot of work that would need to go into this. This is it's hard-lined, it's in the computer. We can spin it around and fly over it. We can do an animation of it, but it really is a sketch in the computer. But it's a sketch based on a math that I know the town of Wethersfield will ultimately be held to when they get to phase 2. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, no problem. It's a good question. And in my mind, I like to design everything, so I have to always keep that in check.
No, I thought the concept was well done. I was just seeing where we were on it.
Okay. Well, we'll talk at phase 2 then. And then lastly, for the last component of phase, well, I'll say When we presented this to the building committee, we felt that the last component of this first referendum would be phase 3, which is to go to Charles Wright. And Charles Wright's an interesting building. It's been around for a long time, and it's been through a lot of iterations, some of which no longer exist on that site. Here, what we are proposing to do is to more or less keep Charles Wright the same size, but to reposition first its classrooms so that the classrooms are well allocated and have access to daylight. The existing Charles Wright has 7 classrooms that are orphaned in the middle of the building. And to also fix an issue that is a persistent problem in that the gym and cafeteria sit prominently in the front of Charles Wright up against Knott Street, and that really gums up traffic because you can't put cars or buses where the gym and the cafeteria are, so that everybody ends up having to queue out onto Knott Street, and twice a day it really blocks up the issue. So what we do is we tear that front off, we flip it to the back of the building, we go in with a melon baller and we scoop up some of the less than sensitive additions that were made in the time to fill in the middle of the checkerboard of the original Charles Wright building and clear out those classrooms. So here again, we're looking at a scheme of a new K through 4 academy, which will be the basis of all the future elementary schools as we work our way through. So what this is a school that contains grades kindergarten through 4th grade with 3 classrooms each, essentially built on a total student population between 305 and 330 students. Charles Wright is a little tricky to still qualify as the renovate as new and get that 10-cent on the dollar incentive. You have to keep at least half of the building. We're a little over here. We're taking more than half of the building away and building it new. So we'll have to, the third architect, will have to keep an eye on that.
You
Now,
solve the parent drop-off issue? And that's,
did we solve it?
yeah.
We addressed
Just so you
it.
know, 13 years my kids spent there. I have 3 kids
Right.
that went through there, so
Okay.
I'm certainly aware of and lived through the nightmare they call parent drop-off and pickup.
I agree. Every school goes through that pain. I think we're creating, we're more than doubling the queuing space that you have there, more than doubling. Will it be perfect? Probably not, because perfection is, I don't think I've yet achieved on any school project I've done, particularly post-COVID when bus ridership has almost disappeared and every student gets driven to school. So it's an increasingly challenging process. We spent a lot of time looking at Charles Wright. It's a tremendous asset to the neighborhood. The site is challenging, but it does have a lot of good resources, and I think you can leverage that and make it a perfectly viable 330 student school moving forward.
This conceptual map, it appears it eliminates all the activity space that they had. They have lacrosse fields there for lacrosse playing. It looks like the building went back and then we're adding spaces in the back of the building. So we're kind of eliminating the town use fields.
Well, we're still keeping, I think, what am I showing there, U10 or maybe U12 field? I can't really read the text here on my piece. So the current lacrosse field is quite large. We would, in this drawing, in this sketch, we're replacing it with, we're moving the play areas behind the new gym, and then that eats up a little bit of the goal, the lacrosse goal there, so we would push it back further. But I'd also say at the Keisha Farm site, you're going to pick up more fields in that phase 1 for the town.
All right. No, I was misreading your map. I appreciate
No, it's all right.
those spaces behind the building. I was envisioning all the way at the back, but that's really the blacktop that's behind the building is where those car spaces are going, that it shows right there. And then there's more field. I got it.
Right.
Thank
So
you.
there is a field, but
Yes.
I'm not sure it'll be regulation middle school lacrosse like you
Okay.
have now.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so what we're really all here to talk about is the budget. I'm presenting this on behalf of Downs. We've been together on this project since its inception, so I'm pretty comfortable speaking on their behalf. I do just want to introduce you to an idea of what we did collectively with them to develop this budget. First, they used the drawings and sketches that we had to do takeoffs of areas of site rework, areas of building demolition, areas of building renovation, areas of new construction. And from there, assembled from their database a cost model of the entire school and its square footages. And they developed essentially what would be the hard cost for the project. The hard cost, when you eventually hire a CM or G general contractor to build the building, that's the number that they'll give you for the total price of the building. That includes all of the site work and hazardous material work, all of the trade costs from the subcontractors, anything temporary that they need to put in place, including their construction trailer while they do the work. And it contains a contingency, because even when bid documents are done years from now, you still haven't captured everything in a construction endeavor. There are, particularly working on existing sites in existing buildings, unforeseen conditions. So that formulates a hard cost, and then in addition to that, on top of that is what's called soft costs. The state likes to say that's anything that you can't touch, like legal and professional design fees, as well as anything that would fall out of the building if you could pick it up and shake it vigorously. So that's all the computers, all the cameras, all the desk, chairs, kickballs, etc. This is also everything that's involved in the cost of making the project exist. So that's bonding cost, insurance cost, and ultimately mover cost to get kids back into the building with the educators. That creates a total budget for the project, and that's the numbers that we're going to discuss in the next slide.
Michael? When you get to the next slides, I'm curious to see if there's any caps or thresholds that would be applied to any of the soft costs or contingencies, so that there's more transparency into what exactly goes into that. And would there be a process for approving any fees that would go beyond if we did set a cap?
Okay. Those are good questions. I'm going to put you through one more boring slide before we get to that. So here, what we're considering and what we showed the building committee when we met with them earlier this month was a three-phase referendum one. It's important to clarify, we haven't had a chance to return to the building committee with this, but referendum one now will have to include the demolition of the Highcrest building, the old Highcrest building. That originally was conceived of as the last phase of the comprehensive plan, because you're going to be using that for to host the visiting kids as they come in and their home school is renovated. But the state also won't let towns excessively build school classrooms, right? That ultimately has to be tied to a district-wide student population count. So they're going to make that first grant application actually involve two things: the construction of new Highcrest, and then 8 to 10 years later, the demolition of old Highcrest. That will return you back to sort of a no net gain necessarily of classrooms across the district. It's a little problematic. We've had a lot of conversations with grants in Hartford about this. We understand their logic. It just means we're going to have to carry that number earlier and make sure that it's sufficient, that by the end of the overall process, when you return to that referendum one money that you bonded, that there's enough money in that pot for the demolition of High Crest. A little complicated, but these are the things that you do on these big projects like this. All right, so the three phases, and I'll show you High Crest at the end of this, which will ultimately swing onto this slide, are first the swing school, then the Webb renovation, and then Charles Wright. In all, sum total, these three projects are estimated to cost just under $224 million. That's a big number, but you're also biting off in this first referendum your biggest undertakings. One, you're building a brand new school from scratch. And two, you're renovating Webb and expanding its size so that its student population grows to the size of Silas Deane Middle School. So those are your two heaviest lifts in this comprehensive plan. You can get it up and out of the way when there are less unknowns with the construction market, right? We all understand that everything costs more the longer time moves forward, that $1 today won't buy you as much in 5 years. So let's get your biggest purchases up and out of the way when you can get the greatest return on that $1 that you bond through the referendum this year, rather than trying to hold on till the bitter end and swallow those biggest pills. In detail, yes, okay. In detail, looking at that top bar, you can see that the new High Crest is a little bit larger than your typical K through 4 elementary school because it has the 5 preschool classrooms added to it. It's going to be around 53,000 gross square feet, and it will come in just under $61.5 million. Because it's new construction, you will not qualify for the Renovators New bonus, but the approximate cost to the town will be just under $34 million for that school. You're getting pretty good reimbursement on that. Wethersfield has a pretty good reimbursement rate. I'll just say that because we work in a lot of towns across the state. And you're right in a good middle. The next phase is Webb. And like I said, Webb is quite large. It's just under 90,000 square feet by the time it's all completed. Vast majority of that square footage is renovation with some new construction. You do qualify for the additional incentive as Renovate as New. So while it is larger and it also involves demolition and hazardous material abatement for all of the hazardous material that is in that building but currently covered over so that the students are safe. In this instance, you would dig deeply back into the building, uncover that material, and remove it completely. So even with those additions, because of the extra reimbursement, the cost to the town is just under $48 million for that. And again, that's $48 million, which is a big number. But keep in mind, that is now a new 5-6 academy. It's a school completely brand new for anyone that shows up there in all appearances and operation. And it's the size of Silas Deane, so it's quite an asset to the town.
Michael, regarding the demolition, is there an additional fee that the town should expect to dispose of? You know, we take it down, we demolish it. Are there additional fees that we'll have to look at to get rid of the material that we don't need?
Yes.
So are those included in there?
Those are all included.
Okay.
Not only, so we had a consultant walk through each of the 5 elementary schools and do a visual inventory, not exhaustive, and certainly not the last effort that would be done on, say, the website. But from that, they created an inventory and a takeoff of anticipated hazardous materials.
Okay.
And then ran a cost estimate for that. I can't remember what Webb's was exactly, but in each of the schools, the number varied between $1 million and $1.5 million just to abate and dispose of the really bad stuff. And then on top of that, there's a demolition cost for the stuff that isn't contaminated, but nevertheless you're going to haul away.
Thank you.
And we also added, you want to talk about contingencies, and we'll get there. But I'll talk to you about how we address that as well.
Thank you.
Okay. And then, let's see. Oh, I do want to just briefly talk about Charles Wright. Charles Wright is a little bit smaller than the new High Crest because it doesn't have the bump from the 5 pre-K classrooms. That comes in just under 42,000 square feet and a total cost of $57 million. And you might say to yourself, well, gee, it's smaller, but it's costing almost as much as the new High Crest. Why is that? There is that hazardous abatement component, there is the demolition component, and you're also going to both bid and build this 2 years later. So we've built in escalation at 6% per year as a model. So that's why that cost is moving forward from you, and exactly why we're trying to do these larger projects in the first phases so that you get a better yield from today's dollars that you're putting on the referendum. The cost to the town on Charles Wright, that number doesn't quite look correct to me, is put in there at 19,800, but or 19,800,000, but I don't think those two numbers add up to 56.
Says
This is 25. Yeah.
On your slideshow, it says 25 million.
Oh,
That's
That adds up there.
Yep.
all right.
You were right that it was
Here's the
off.
I don't understand why the printer wouldn't have caught that, but
Let
I
the
will,
record
I
show
will stick,
presentation's right.
yeah, maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't take last meeting's handouts with me to these meetings, so, yeah. Regardless, I'll try to read the numbers. So again, just under 27 million. Okay. So let's talk about contingencies and soft costs and escalations. So the first thing to recognize, I'm just going to run back here. To referendum 1, we're trying to get you in the ground as quickly as possible. This is a tremendous endeavor that you're considering to undertake. And the building committee weighed this heavily as to whether you should just do deferred maintenance on all these schools and do it incrementally, or to take this essentially as a once-in-a-generation opportunity to do a hard reset on each of these facilities. And that's what they're opting for. This is your hard reset, and this is going to be a 10-year endeavor. We're trying to get you in the ground sooner rather than later because, as I said, right now we're modeling about 6% inflation each year as you move forward. That's a pretty aggressive number in my life as an architect over almost 30 years. It's a pretty high number, but anyone who's been in the construction industry can certainly point out in the last 5 years how hard it's been to track escalation. So 6% is conservative in a good way, and I think certainly over the 10 years will bear itself out pretty well. I will say that after COVID, construction inflation prices, once they jumped so dramatically post-COVID, have returned more to like 2.5% to 3% in most commodities. So that's number one. We're trying to get you in the ground sooner rather than later, so we're starting design on phase 1. We're proposing that you have your referendum, and if the referendum is successful, you immediately go into an RFP process to select an architect for that project, select a construction manager, perhaps an owner's rep, really assemble the team during the fall, and then as soon as you get the grant commitment letter from the state that says, we're going to put you on the priority list and we're going to vote on it the summer of 2026, we're saying, go ahead and start the design. And the reason you do that is because if you don't start design then, it's going to be a full academic year before you can get into that school. You're going to move that project out a full year. The reason I say that is it's very hard for students, particularly elementary students, to move in the middle of an academic year. That's a tremendous undertaking. You might be able to move from one wing to another, but in this instance, you'd be taking out the entire High Crest population, picking them up and moving them across the street. That's a heavy lift and pretty disruptive. And the cost of delaying the project for a year and in escalation is going to be more than the design fees that you spend before the legislature officially approves your grant. And I'll also say that in the almost 30 years I've been doing this, once a project's been put on the priority list, it's never not been approved. It's never not been approved. How's that, Superintendent? They've all been approved. Doesn't mean that's going to hold true, but in trying to manage risk across this entire endeavor, we urge you to do that. The soft costs on all of these projects are capped at 20%.
20% of what?
20% of the hard cost have become
Okay.
the soft cost. Doesn't mean you're going to spend 20%, but that's all the state will reimburse you for.
Sure.
There are currently the math on the collective memorandums out of the school construction office do not quite agree with one another. At the height of COVID, they urged towns to carry 10% owner's contingency to cover the escalation that we were seeing at bid. It's really not possible to do that and maintain a 20% cap on your overall soft costs. So
These are
grants
hard
have
costs.
given special dispensation during that time.
Okay.
We believe that now it will revert back to the old 20%.
Okay.
Okay?
And the hard cost, like where we snap the line, is when we go to the referendum, or what hard cost do we go into? Like,
Oh,
what
I'm
is
sorry.
that
Hard cost is a term of art that I was using about a construction endeavor. So let's take phase one, which
Yep.
is an easier one to hone in on because it's new construction and it's closest to us in timeline. Hard cost is what you would pay a construction manager or general contractor to build the building. That's the hard cost, period, for that.
Okay.
And then you've got to pay an architect like myself, you got to pay lawyers, you've got to buy furniture, you got to buy computers, you got to bond the money, which costs, you got to buy insurance, blah, blah, blah. That becomes part of the 20% soft costs. So that's those two things. So in each of these little bar charts that you see for each of these phases, Downs did a serious takeoff of the square footage of the buildings and what type of square footage it was. They did a serious takeoff of the square footage of the site and what type of site it was, and built a full cost model, all trades. So I can tell you that High Crest mechanical systems are estimated at $92 a square foot
Okay.
right now. And then we escalated it out to the midpoint of construction in that bar chart. So that teal bar, we counted the months to the midpoint of that teal bar for the new High Crest school, divided it by 12, multiplied it by 6%, and that's the total escalation we put on it, both hard and soft costs.
Okay.
Quick question, the soft cost, would that include the bond for the demolition of the High Crest School too? Because you said
No,
that costs money, but I didn't want to because
No,
that,
that's good.
yeah, so
That's good.
whoever's responsible for that bonding of that money for the demolition is still phase one, I believe.
Yeah,
but-
I'm going to show you High Crest in a little bit.
Yeah, I didn't know if that-
Last time we met with the building committee, we were saying we're going to make that part of the second referendum, And then late last week, we got the official word from the state that says, no, you're going to have to move that up and make that part of your first grant application. But I'll show you where it is in the time, because it's 8 to 10 years out, it's more money than it would cost to do it with 2028 construction dollars. Okay.
So Michael, the questions that I'm asking, what I'm trying to get to is, when we go to the town and say, will you spend X amount? I'm trying to understand what things could happen or what kind of controls will be in place so that we stay as close to that number as possible. And I don't think this is the meeting to tease that out, but that is a question. I just don't understand enough to know, when we run over, our high school project ran over. And, that was with one school, albeit, a very large one, but we have 5 schools that we're embarking on.
No, it's true.
So I would just at some point like to understand a little bit more about how, what costs we can go into, depend upon, and then what is the control process or authority or, approvals for any deviance to the original cost. That's just something I'm looking for.
No, it's true. I will say that mathematically, we pegged the soft cost at 20%. But then we ran back into the hard cost and put in a construction contingency, a design contingency. We've escalated that over time as well. So there are other numbers outside of that spreadsheet that help calibrate the overall cost to create the pot of money that you're ultimately going to need when you're out in the future buying these pieces of building and assembling them and dealing with more hazardous material than you thought of, a change in soil conditions,
Sure.
A tariff on a particular building commodity. Right?
Okay.
So there's nothing but unknowns. And unfortunately, even if we were just talking about building one building tomorrow, I would still tell you that there's as much intelligence as I continually try to bring to these endeavors. There are unknowns in construction. And all we can do is help you calibrate that risk and protect the money. And
I think Wethersfield would, be interested in knowing, what the approval workflow process is for anything that runs as an overage at some point when you are aware of it.
Well, once we're in construction, once you hire an architect, the architect will tell you their fees up front. And unless you change your mind or change the assignment, those are the fees.
So it's fixed bid, it's not like time and materials?
No.
Okay.
No, unfortunately, from architects everywhere, no. And then once that collective design team working with the building committee and you and the Wethersfield professional staff generates bid documents, which are far more delineated sets of documents, and you hand that over to a constructor, be that a construction manager or general contractor. They put it out to bid, and then they give you what's called a guaranteed maximum price, and that's your number. Okay. So unless you change your mind along the way, which I've never met an owner who hasn't, that's okay. Or something unforeseen happens, that's the price of the building. But as unforeseens happen or owners change their mind, then those changes go through a ratification process and ultimately go to the building committee and say, yes, we approved this $60,000 to go to additional computers.
Okay.
Or we approved this $12,000 to get this extra asbestos out of the way that we didn't know we had until we cracked open the building.
Thank you.
It's both complicated and not.
Yeah.
All we can do is draw a big circle around all the risk that we see and try to put an order of magnitude on it and review that with the building committee, and then ultimately it's going to be your town council that really arbitrates that. right? Whether this is the number, or we need more, or we need to do the same thing with less money.
Okay.
It's up to them, but we have the cost models. Like I said, we know the math that the state uses. Downs has a ton of live construction market information coming to and through them on a daily basis. They're building stuff as we speak. They're building elementary schools as we speak. They know what it costs today. They understand the trends. They can project out. Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate the detail.
I'm just going to run to the remainder of this program, comprehensive plan, which I think the building committee will recommend to the town council will be completed by a second referendum. The reason you do that is because at this point in time, we're talking about construction in the year 2030 and concluding in 2033. And as good as Downs is, there is not a constructor out there that can tell you exactly what something's going to cost in 2033. However, if we split it into two referendums and we all get together and meet again in 2028, we'll have much better insight on what 2033 may look like, and you'll get a better return on whatever dollars you're putting before the public. The other thing that I'll say in both South Windsor project that TSKP was not involved in, but in Manchester, a town in which we were involved in a comprehensive plan, halfway through the town had more robust set of priorities. Building on the success of the first phase of the comprehensive plan, they saw more opportunities and more returns on their investment, and they wanted to recalibrate. So they weren't just throwing a dart at the fourth and fifth phase. They were able to pivot, make a different value judgment about the remainder of those schools, and continue the listening process to the community. So success breeds success. It's good to get off to a strong start, build confidence with the public, show them what this Board of Ed and what the building committee can return for the referendum dollars, and then from there decide how they want to proceed with the remainder of the elementary school projects. So what we're looking at here is a range of cost. Downs, knowing how hard it is to predict, was looking at a total referendum in phase 2 between $138 million and $160 million, with an approximate cost to the town of Wethersfield between $60.5 and $69 million. Those numbers, like I said, aren't going to hold well because that light pink bar at the bottom involving the high crest demolition will now have to move into referendum 1. But I'm just going to zoom in real quick. We did a series of planning exercises to Emerson William, like we did to Charles Wright, to understand how that school could actually be shrunk to a K-4 academy. And then we looked at Hamner, and in this instance, to be a school that was in parity with the remaining K-4 academies, Hamden would have to shrink. But based on what we started to suss out with the Historic District Commission, we carried all of the square footage of Hamner in this number, which would, because at this point in time, we're not counting on being able to demolish portions of Hamner to right size it. So you'll have to carry full freight that square footage for the time being. Again, that's just as a way to mitigate risk. It doesn't mean that by the time you hire an architect to actually do this, that will be the result. It also doesn't mean that perhaps the superintendent at that time would say, you know what, I've got a new program for the town of Wethersfield that would fit perfectly in that excess square footage, and we'd like to bring it to the town as a value proposition, and if you like it, we'll write it into the ed spec and it'll become part of the grant, and you're off to the races. And then lastly, that last bar that I want to look at, which is the high crest demolition, which is between $8 and $9 million. That will be to abate the existing Highcrest School, all of the hazardous material that's currently contained and covered up will have to be removed, and then that entire building would have to be demolished and down to the foundations, and essentially grass planted over the top of it by the time that you leave. So that is the value that will have to move into that first referendum and become part of the first grant application. And while it wouldn't cost you $9 million to do that today, you're going to have to hold something like $9 million in your back pocket to make sure you don't leave half of Highcrest where it once stood. I said I was going to go through it fast. I'm not sure if I really did that. I appreciate your patience. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to discuss it more.
Anyone with any questions? Jim?
The hazardous waste, I know you mentioned the demolition on the back end. I think originally we were told that none of the hazardous waste like costs, like removal of asbestos, were included in the costs. But I see you had a line item there, I thought, on one of the slides. Can you tell me if there's any cost for that type of thing if they occur in the other schools?
Yes, all of your existing schools contain, I'll call it hazardous materials, not hazardous waste. That hazardous waste makes it sound like the superintendent was doing something he shouldn't have done. But it's hazardous material. It doesn't mean that the students that are currently attending school there are in any danger. It's just underneath carpet, there may be asbestos tile. In the mastics behind the wall or the glues that were used, there may be other pieces. There's undoubtedly PVCs in the caulk. So as long as your students aren't actively going up there and digging it out and eating it, you're in good shape. But when you go to demolish it, you have to remove it in a safe way and dispose of it in a safe way. And if you want to qualify for the Renovate as New additional funding, you have to get rid of all of it. You have to take it down to the bones and rebuild back with safe material. And that's the number that's in each of these estimates.
Okay, thank you. So it's included in...
And it's between $1 million and $1.5 million for each of the 5 sites. I don't remember exactly the cost of each of them. And the other thing I'll say is that's in today's dollars. And so we immediately had to escalate it out, starting with Charles Wright. Starting with Webb, excuse me.
Okay, and it's understood that unless these materials are disturbed, they're not a problem now. So I get that. Thank you.
Okay.
Anyone else with a question? Any other? Okay, well, 6C is our action item, and we'll take a vote on it. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion 6C passes. Thank you. Okay, this evening we have an advisory building committee discussion. I think we're all done. I think we have heard everything we need to hear.
Bobby, can I
Michael.
just make a few comments in that
Sure
section?
can. But thank you, Michael Scott. Thank you.
Unless Michael wants to present again. You can come on up. No, okay. So I just, first, this will be a rotating agenda item. I know Mr. Carey and I talked about it last meeting, so I'm glad to see it on the agenda so quickly. I won't go through the detail that Michael just gave, but I want to point out a couple of key things for us as a Board of Ed to understand. So on May 5th, the Town Council will get that same presentation, so they'll understand exactly where the master plan sits with those preliminary costs. And I want to mention again, they're approximate preliminary numbers. A lot more to happen. May 13th is a big date for us as a Board of Ed. It's a longer meeting. I think we have a lot on that agenda, but that's also when we will approve educational specifications as a board. So that is a very important meeting for us. And then, of course, it all culminates to June 16th, which is when the Town Council will ultimately, draft the referendum question and vote on that question. So that is the end of school and the biggest vote for the referendum to date. So we look forward to that. I also wanted to make this public as building committee chair because we haven't had a chance to do this, and I've received some communication and want to make sure we do this. The referendum date originally was proposed as September 23rd. That is a Jewish holiday, it's Rosh Hashanah, so we are decided to move it up a week, recommend it gets moved up a week to September 16th to accommodate that. So that was something that the public spoke out on as well and opened our eyes to that, and we are glad to accommodate that. And with that, I'll open up to board questions for me, if there are any.
Thank you,
I think
John. Anyone?
I wonder if they asked all of them to Michael already.
Have you slept lately?
Yes. I went on vacation last week. Thank you.
Good.
Okay, we're all set? All right, so we'll move on. We have Board of Ed meetings held, and Matt, you're on with our Finance and Operations Committee meeting.
Thank you, Bobby. So prior to tonight's Board of Ed meeting, the Finance and Operations Committee did meet. Everybody was in attendance, which was nice to see. We talked about a couple different things pertaining to costs and budgets, both in under this current year's budget and next year's board adopted budget. Concerning this year's current budget, we talked about the usual, where we are at, whether we are under or over budget. We are currently under budget. However, just like last month, however, excess costs are still a moving target, and we don't know exactly what our extra top off will be from the state for this current year, so we're still waiting on that. We discussed outplacement projections for next year, which it sounds like are going on in district. I see our Director of Special Services are here. I'm sure he's been involved in that alongside Michael and Sally. So that's appreciated. That's always a moving number, and it's something that we like to project and estimate very, very closely. So thank you for your work on that. We talked about last night's town budget hearing. How Michael presented our budget. The town manager, Fred, presented the town side of the budget. Ours is about 4.95%. It sounds like the town's is about 3.85% for around a 4.4% total. We discussed upcoming dates that are important. May 14th is when the town council will set the budget, and May 15th we will get our allocation. So between May 15th and May 27th, I believe that us as a board will have to, and we should meet to discuss what we're going to do with the final number that the council gives to us. We're hoping that it is close to 4.95%. Also discussed, we're always looking to save money any way possible. I hope everybody knows that and appreciates that. We discussed maybe going out for RFPs for legal services and or other purchase services for next year. Shop around, if you will. And we discussed school lunches. There may come a point in time where we end up having to try to pay for that or charge our students. We hope it never gets to that. We hope federal money keeps coming in and maybe the state helps. For the time being, we do have money in our cafeteria fund that we can allocate to school lunches. But at some point that's going to run out and we will have to have a plan for that. And that was all we discussed, Bobby.
That was excellent, thank you. Okay, meeting scheduled. We do have a Human Resources and Personnel, which will be on May 13th. That's going to be a busy day, 5 o'clock, thank you. And Student Program and Services on May 20th at 6 o'clock. Okay, is there anyone wishing to make a public comment? Come on up to the podium, and may I remind you that you have a 5-minute limit. Okay, are there any board comments?
Go ahead, Janice is going to go first.
Nope, down here, Janice?
Just a reminder that Keen for Kids will have a series of plays at each of the elementary schools coming up, musicals, and starting with this coming weekend at Charles Wright, they'll be doing Frozen Friday night, Saturday afternoon, and Saturday evening. So check your calendars for all the other schools. They're going to come up in pretty quick succession.
Great. Anyone else? Christina?
Yeah, before this board meeting, I attended the SDMS PAC meeting, and they're looking for parents to get involved with the Parent Advisory Committee. They're looking for a vice president for sure, secretary, treasurer. Tonight was their incoming 7th grade night, and it's just a wonderful opportunity to still help out. And a lot of parents help out in the elementary level, but secondary education students need, I think, more support, not only as a secondary teacher, but kids need that. They need activities. The teachers need that support to have, student council and kindness club and maybe after-school activities. So I hope that some people out there can consider that. I did it, and it was really rewarding. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Matt?
I just want to follow up on the joke that I made earlier about John Weiner. In all seriousness, I just want to thank John for his work on the building committee thus far. He's basically doing double duty. He initially started off as just a board member that was supposed to be the liaison to the building committee, but he is now the chair of the building committee. And he's been providing timely and concise updates, and I hope he knows that his work does not go unnoticed. Thank you, John.
Yes, thank you, John. Go ahead.
I guess I have to go next now. It's never about me. This project is the reason why I got into this in the first place. It's one of the most important things we're ever going to do as a board. So thank you, Matt, but it's about everybody. The committee is a great group of volunteers. TSKP, I was going to say, I've had the pleasure of working with a lot of consultants in my professional career. I know, Liz, you probably as well. Michael is a great presenter, and I think he's done a great job. This process has been very transparent. We received a lot of compliments on its transparency. I think it's working great, but it is not just about me, Matt, and I do appreciate that, though. Some fun things. A couple weeks ago, I took part in viewing Festival Choir and Festival Band. It was both great events. That's why I missed the last building committee meeting. So, Michael, now you know. My daughter Claire also took part in both of those events. So it was really great to see. We have a lot of talented musicians and singers in this district. Sally, great job. It was a really great couple-day events at the high school. And then I was also going to plug the Keen for Kids plays because there is one in Hamner in a couple weeks, Willy Wonka, and my daughter is in that. So she said, please plug it. So Willy Wonka will be at Hamner next weekend, and go see it. Go buy some tickets. Thanks.
Great. Go ahead, Liz.
Thank you. So, I look back to the different presentations that we've received since I've been on the board, and we've received quite a few on the merits, benefits, and the program around restorative practice. I think we've even been recognized by Yale for our progress in that. But what I would like to hear more about is what we're doing to train our staff around neurodiversity. I had reached out to both Superintendent Emmett and Assistant Superintendent Distoli back on April 8th after our last Board of Ed meeting. And my question was, what is the staff being given in the way of professional development around this type of training? Sally did get back to me on April 9th, noting that, Michael, you would get back to me with an answer to that. And just having returned from spring break, I just wanted to say I'm looking forward to hearing back from you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Liz. Anyone else? Jim?
The Career Advisory Board had its career fair on April 10th, and it was well attended, 55, 60 businesses. Liz was there representing the Hartford, and Mike was there. And I saw many board members pass on through, so
it was
a great event. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, well, I just have a save the date. We'd like people to join us here in the chambers on May 13th at 6 o'clock as we welcome our new superintendent of schools. It's a warm welcome to Jeffrey Whitby. And on a note of change that we're heading to in so many areas here, a quote: "We should strive to welcome change and challenges because those are what make us grow." Thank you. All right, and Angelica Data. She's going to fill us in on life at the high school.
So the first piece of information that I would like to share, a few weeks ago, me and another senior, Melinda Doss, we earned recognitions from the Connecticut Student Writers Project. Melinda earned a gold award for her art piece, and I earned a silver award for my poem. Thank you. Over spring break, we had 2 trips. One was to Costa Rica and one was to Italy. And I've only ever heard from my peers that they had positive experiences. As someone who certainly believes that learning happens in the classroom, of course, its true measure, it's is how you're able to apply it to the real world, and these are the perfect opportunities for students. And then currently, us DECA students are really excited. We're leaving for Florida to compete at ICDC this Friday. And then the class of 2026 has their induction ceremony coming up, but they're doing like a rehearsal tomorrow for the National Honor Society. And then lastly, we have the last blood drive of the school year, which is really bittersweet. I've loved helping out coordinate those. So those are just some updates I'd like to share.
Thank you very much. Okay, anyone else? I think we're all set. All right, is there any unfinished business tonight? Oh, great. Okay, let's have a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Nobody's opposed or abstaining. Good night, everyone.